where the mighty hosts of heaven sing. Turn your radio on, turn your radio on. If you want to hear the songs of Zion coming from the land of endless spring, get in touch with God. Turn your radio on, and listen to the music in the air. Turn your radio on, heaven's glory share. Turn your lights down low and listen to the Master's radio. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on. Getting it? Dialing it in? Listen to the glory language. Listen to the glad hosannas roll. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. Get a little taste of love eternal. Get a little heaven in your soul. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. And listen to the music in the air. Turn your radio on. Heaven's glory share. Turn your lights down low and listen to the Master's radio. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on. Well, listen to the songs of the fathers and the mothers and the many friends gone on before. Get your radio on. Turn your radio on. Some eternal morning we shall meet them over on the hallelujah shore. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. And listen to the music in the air. Turn your radio on. Heaven's glory share. Turn your lights down low. And listen to the Master's radio. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on. Well, everybody is a radio receiver. All you got to do is listen for the call. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. Listening, you'll be a believer, leaning on a truth that'll never fall. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. And listen to the music in the air. Turn your radio on. Heaven's glory share. Turn your lights down low and listen to the Master's radio. Get in touch with God. Turn the radio on. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on. Now that was courageous. I'm not a country singer. And I used to love that song. Carter Family Style. I used to listen to that song and sing that song. Just always kind of. I know, you know, some of us grew up in the holler.
I feel like I'm watching Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's a man of constant sorrow. No, not this morning. No. Good morning, everybody. I'm Reverend Mary Marie Shelton. I am the Senior Minister and Community Spiritual Leader here at Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. Happy to welcome you. I want you to know whoever you are and wherever you may be on your pathway of faith, you're welcome here. We want to especially welcome those who are our first-time visitors this morning. Our team is coming forward with packets of information for you, which is our gift to you. And there's another gift involved as well. But we need for you to give us a wave so we can find you. And actually, if you brought somebody new with you for the first time today, give us a wave. Yes? No? Yes? Oh, great. Wonderful. And you're going to find inside there's a blue card like this. If you fill it out and take it back to the table at the back here, the membership table, they're going to give you a little free book called What Religious Science Teaches, which is kind of all about what we believe here. And we're delighted to have you with us. We hope you're going to see you a lot in the future. Thanks for coming with us this morning. All right, and let's welcome our guest. Yes. All right, great. Yes. Okay, we are this year celebrating 100 years of Science of Mind. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, published his first book 100 years ago, so that's why we're celebrating it, all of Centers for Spiritual Living. And we've been sharing monthly themes as we've been going along, although I have diverged for a couple of months for our special 8-week program that we're doing right now called Dare to Live the Life You Came to Live. So our theme for this month is the power of intention. So you'll see here that this archer is aiming at this target. And one of the things that I've been saying about intention is that intention is a combination of two difficult things. One is to commit to the target, and the other is to let go of the arrow. So the balance between those two is one of the most challenging things that we have to do in consciousness, both commit and allow for the divine to enter into our experience with what I call cosmic left turns and divine rewrites. So right now, today, our theme is Dare to be Courageous. And I thought it was great this morning when David stood up and said, I am courageous, was his affirmation, because I don't know if you noticed this, but at the very moment that he said the word courageous, there was a cheer that went up from the soccer field out here. So I thought that was just great. That was perfect timing. And being courageous takes us into a lot of different areas. Sometimes it makes us competitive. We become courageous, or maybe we'll see if it's courageous or not. But I want to tell you this story. An American general, a Russian general, and a British general were standing on the deck of a ship watching war exercises when the topic of the discussion turned to courage. The Russian general boasted, "Russians are most courageous people on earth." Not to be outdone, the American general challenged him. "Oh, yeah?" The Russian replied, "Yes, Yuri, jump off deck and swim around the ship." Without a word, Yuri jumped off into the freezing Atlantic and did as he was told. The Russian turned to the American and said, "There is example of Russian courage." The American had to top this. So he called up one of his men and gave the order, "Jack, jump off the main mast into the ocean and swim around the ship 7 times. Jack, without a murmur, he too followed his orders, and the American general bragged, "Top that for courage." Then the Russian and the American generals turned to the British general who'd been watching these antics silently. "What about your people?" they asked him. The British general called up one of his men and said, "Trevor, jump off the mast and swim into the keel of the ship. There's a good fellow." Trevor stared at his general. "Let me be sure I understand you, sir. You want me to jump off the mast?" "Yes." "And swim under the keel?" "Yes." "You'll pardon me saying so, sir, but you must be daft." And so saying, Trevor saluted his commanding officer, turned around and walked away. The British general turned to the other two and said, "Now there's an example of real courage." Yes, thank you. Sometimes not following orders is the action of courage. And before I get into the talk this morning, I want to say one thing about something that's been on probably all of our minds or our radios or television sets this week, and that is the hearings for the Supreme Court. Oops, I'm losing my grip here. The hearings for the Supreme Court have been contentious. They've been emotional. They've been frustrating or scary or difficult. A lot of people have been affected by what has been said and done or not said or not done. Families have been affected. People on both sides have received death threats and horrible tweets and emails and stuff like that. And this is a difficult period for us as Americans. It's a difficult period for us looking at this process that's going on. We all have opinions about it, and it's easy to get upset. It's easy to get upset with each other. It's easy to get upset with what's going on, with the television, with various characters involved. And so I think what we want to do, if we can, is step back and affirm the truth and affirm courage for everybody involved. It's courageous to tell the whole truth, no matter what it is, no matter which side of the issue that you're on. This is a difficult issue. Would you agree? So let us hold together for everyone involved in this. The Senate, the candidate, the people doing the questioning, the women that are bringing forth the accusations. Let us know for all of them a sense of courage and safety, grounded and anchored in the truth and in their own deep truth. Everybody has a sense of what is true for them. And it takes courage sometimes to own that truth. So let us hold for these people courage, groundedness, an unwavering commitment to the truth. Can we do that? And to try and be expansive to those that we disagree with, to make space. You know, what we want as a nation is to go forward together. And that means going forward fast enough that people that want to go fast don't die of boredom, and slowly enough that people that want to go slow don't get lost along the way. And that's a tall order. That's intention. That's commitment and letting go. So we're kind of called into both of those. We're in this adventure in faith together. Dare to live the life you came to live. See this little person with the telescope here looking at this shining city in the sunshine, all alone on the sailboat. Dare to live the life you came to live. This is an adventure in daring, in discovery, and in commitment, both to ourselves and to our spiritual family. So last week we began with Dare to be Curious. And I'll talk more about the poster and the affirmations and all that stuff later on, because today we're going to dare to be courageous. But we are exploring our level of commitments and our willingness to be committed and to take steps forward into the unknown, into more challenging areas with a sense of willingness and commitment. It is a combination of daring and intention. This is an interesting story Dina Metzger told a number of years ago. She was working in a personal disarmament workshop. And she said, a man who had been a peace activist had to confront the extremity of his distrust of others. Gently, I raised the analogy to the disarmament table. I suggested that the officials who sat at the table trying to reach agreements were as distrustful, suspicious, and injured as he was. He was broken by this realization and confessed that he couldn't, in their place, conscientiously advocate weakening the defense system. Yet he had advocated disarmament all his life. Admittedly, if he were in their position, feeling as he did, he would have to say, more bombs. For a while, he lived with rage and humiliation. Then he began looking in himself for whatever was possible to allow him to trust. He found inner defenses that were not aggressive. He began to validate inner security so that he could come to the negotiating table in a wholehearted manner. He did not disregard potential dangers or fears, but he did develop confidence by reviewing his history and validating what sustained more than what undermined, until he was willing to take a risk. When he returned to the ranks of peace activists, he had a new authority. He had found a way to test the sincerity of his political positions, as well as a way to reconstruct his inner world so that it accorded with his principles. That is courageous, to be able to look at something like that you've advocated all your life and realize that internally, personally, you don't live in alignment with that. That's a hard truth to face. And yet I think that most of us see the world in idealistic terms that is difficult to hold ourselves to, as well as other people. Would you agree? Sometimes we're harder on ourselves than we are on others. Sometimes we're easier on ourselves than we are on others. But I think that in general, we expect our leaders, whether they're political or spiritual or the head of the family, we expect them to really be at a higher level of consciousness and integrity than everybody else. That's why we let them be leaders, because we think that they're there, which is great. And it's great to hold people accountable to that, but it's also difficult for anybody to live up to 100% of the time. So everybody that's in a position of leadership is going to disappoint us sometimes, is going to let us down. They're going to show their shadow side, because they're human beings in a physical form, which leaves a shadow, both physically and in other ways. Does this make sense? So what we want to be able to do is distinguish for ourselves what is courage and what is bravery. I think of these as two different things. So what is the difference between courage and bravery? Now, this may be splitting hairs. It may be semantics, but I like exploring this. Are you willing to go with me here? Okay. So Stuart Emery, who was the first CEO of EST, said, courage is taking creative action in the presence of fear. So when I think about bravery, I think of bravery as a spontaneous action where you jump in without full awareness necessarily of all of the dangers involved. It is a quick decision. It is an automatic sort of response that goes forward without necessarily taking time to assess the risks. It's, you see somebody that needs help, you go help, you give it no thought whatsoever. If the car blows up, you go with it. It was an act of bravery. It was an act of compassion in that moment. Does that make sense? Okay. Courage, I think, is a little bit different. Courage, I see as actually a way of life. It is authentic and grounded, and it comes from the heart, and it is a risk that we take with awareness of the potential dangers involved. It is a risk that we take from our values, from our integrity, from our heart. It's a known risk. In other words, we evaluate whether or not we're going to take action. It's not a quick thing. Then when we take the action and we go forward with that intentionally, even in the presence of fear, even knowing everything that might happen and still deciding to make that choice, that's courage. So it isn't necessarily a momentary decision, but it is a decision that is made in the presence of awareness of the potential dangers that are involved. So the question then arises, what is a risk worth taking? What is really a risk that is worth taking? There are soldiers and first responders all over the world who are actively engaged with disasters that are happening. These are people who chose to go into a particular profession, and possibly the original choice was motivated by a desire for glory or adventure or fun. It might have been a little foolhardy. It was brave, but maybe they weren't aware on a knowing level of all the risks. But those that stay engaged in those professions, those firefighters, those first responders, those guys who have been on the front lines and women who've been on the front lines over and over again, they know what the risks are. They've seen the downside. They've made a choice to continue. They've moved from a place of bravery and ego and glory to a place of community and commitment and courage. So I want to share with you, Margaret Wheatley, who writes on leadership, said, determination, energy, and courage appear spontaneously when we care deeply about something. We take risks that are unimaginable in any other context. We take the risk maybe spontaneously, but I think that when we care about it that much, that we choose to go forward in spite of the risk, then that's courage, when we are fully cognizant of the risk that we're taking. Steve Jobs did this marvelous address at Stanford for the commencement in 2005. And it's not very long for a speech, I'm going to read it to you because it's pretty interesting what he has to say about the trajectory of leadership and of his life. He says, I'm honored to be with you today at your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. I never graduated from college. Truth be told, this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it, no big deal, just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for about another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why did I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was young, unwed, college graduate, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife, except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, we have an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him? They said, of course. My biological mother later found out that my mother had never graduated from college, and my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would someday go to college. And 17 years later, I did go to college, but I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was spending all the money my parents had saved their entire lives. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time. But looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and began dropping in on the ones that looked interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. And I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, and what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this ever had a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would never have had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely no personal computer would have had them if I had never dropped out. I would have never dropped in on this calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking back 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. This approach has never let me down, and it has made all the difference in my life. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20, We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We had just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I had just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me, and for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. And when we did, our board of directors sided with him. So, at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I'd let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with Dave Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley, but something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I had been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could ever have happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. And it freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company called Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer-animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next. I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance, and Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for your work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking until you find it. Don't settle. My third story is about death. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made an impression on me. And since then, for the past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you're going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You're already naked. There's no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost certainly a type of cancer that is incurable and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try and tell your kids everything you thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them, in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes. I lived with that diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, into my stomach and my intestines, put a needle into my pancreas, and got a few cells from the tumor. I was sedated, but my wife, who was there, told me that when they viewed the cells under a microscope, the doctors started crying because it turned out to be a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is curable with surgery. I had the surgery and I'm fine now. Aside, obviously this was earlier in his process, right? Then he comes back and says, this was the closest I've been to facing death, and I hope it's the closest I get for a few more decades. Having lived through it, I can now say this to you with a bit more certainty than when death was a useful but purely intellectual concept. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. When I was young, there was an amazing publication called The Whole Earth Catalog, which was one of the Bibles of my generation. It was created by a fellow named Stuart Brand, not far from here in Menlo Park, and he brought it to life with his poetic touch. This was in the late 1960s, before personal computers and desktop publishing, so it was all made with typewriters, scissors, and Polaroid cameras. It was sort of like Google in paperback form 35 years before Google came along. It was idealistic and overflowing with neat tools and great notions. Stuart and his team put out several issues of the Whole Earth Catalog, and then, when it had run its course, they put out a final issue. It was the mid-1970s, and I was your age. On the back cover of their final issue was a photograph of an early morning country road, the kind you might find yourself hitchhiking on if you were so adventurous. And beneath it were the words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was their farewell message as they signed off. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And I have always wished that for myself. And now as you begin to graduate and begin anew, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. That's courage. Yes. That's courage. The risk worth taking is to follow heart, to follow intuition. And so we're looking at courage and commitment. This painter here is taking this skeleton with a mushroom cloud, this gun pointing at him, people down here that are suffering and unhappy, discomfort, war, poverty, and turning it into flowers with this palette right here. He is taking action to look at what is and change it into a vision of something better. Courage and commitment together. The spiritual practice of courage and commitment. E. Cummings says it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. I appreciate that. So our persistence grows our character and strengthens our resolve when we're operating in this courageous act. To commit to the practice of being courageous in speech when there's risk involved, in action when there's risk involved, and in thought where there's less direct risk, but the risk in being courageous in thought is that it will challenge everything we already think we believe. It will move us out of our habits, our opinions, our prejudices, towards something grander, something larger, something bigger. There's a story told of two friends in Africa, in a remote village. One of the men was the head of the tribe, the king, and the second was his right-hand man, his best friend. They had grown up together. And the right-hand man had this habit that whatever happened in the course of his day, he always said, no matter what it was, he always said, "This is good." That was just his habit. So the two of them often went hunting together, and the way that it worked is that the right-hand man would load the guns, and the king would fire them. And one particular day, when they were out in a remote area, the right-hand man apparently had made a mistake with something, because the king picked up one of the weapons and fired it, and it blew his thumb off. And the right-hand man said, "This is good." And the king said, "This is not good." And he put his best friend in jail for treason. And the right-hand man spent a year in this prison. And then, after about a year, the king was out actually hunting alone in an area that he probably should have known better than to go into alone, where the people in that region were cannibals. And he was captured and taken. And they had him all tied up and ready to go. But as they leaned over to begin to light the fire around him, and they were closer to him, they saw that he only had one thumb. And they never ate anybody who was less than whole. So they untied him and they sent him on his way. Well, the king realized that the missing thumb had obviously saved his life. So he went immediately to the prison, and he apologized and unlocked everything to let his friend out. And he said, "I am so sorry. It was bad and wrong of me. I see now that it really was good that my thumb was blown off. And I'm so sorry that what I did to you, it was bad and wrong." And his friend said, "No, this is good." And the king said, "How can it be good that I locked my best friend up in prison for a whole year?" And the right-hand man said, "If I had not been in prison, I would have been with you." Sometimes it takes courage to see through the appearances. And when we take that courage, then sometimes we discover the right way. So today I'm going to invite you to join me in this poster that is available for every one of you. If you weren't here last week and you didn't get it, they're back at the membership table. Be sure you get one before you go home. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to hand out two little slips of paper to you. You're going to need one of each. One has a line on it for your name and today's date, which is September 30th. The other one is an affirmation card. If you choose to make a commitment to courage for this week, then you'll take the commitment card and sign your name on it and date it, like this. Here's the card. It says, "I dare to be courageous." This is the ancient symbol for Christianity. Every one of these qualities has a world religion attached to it. You're going to sign your name here and then date it so that it goes like that. And then you're going to receive a little affirmation card. Whoops. Oh, no, come back. You're going to receive an affirmation card, and we're all going to say this affirmation together. So those of you that have the cards, please pass them out. And remember, you're getting two. You're getting one that's an affirmation and one that's a place to sign. Each week during this 8-week program, we are going to make a commitment, if we choose to do that. We're going to make a specific commitment. Now, one of the things you'll see in your program this morning, do I have mine up here with me? I don't. If you flip it over, you will see the list of names of everybody who committed to curiosity last week. So if you turned in a card last week, your name appears on that list. There were 3 illegibles. So if you signed in a card and your name isn't on the list, it's because we couldn't read it. So today, you might want to print your name on the card instead of sign it if you want to be seen. And next week, we're going to add all the new people who commit to curiosity, as well as the ones who commit today to courage. So if you were not here last week and you missed the opportunity to get these for the quality of courage, you can also get those back at the membership table this morning. And what they'll have you do back there is sign and date the curiosity commitment, and then they'll give you the affirmation. You're going to take the affirmation home, And you're going to stick it on your poster. So you can see here, this is our affirmation this morning for courage. I'm willing to step forward and be visible. I know that what I have to say is valuable. That's our affirmation for courage. You're going to take this affirmation card home, and you're going to stick it over the top of the place here on your poster that says courage. So it will look like that. And your poster should go someplace where you can see it so that you know during the week when you see that affirmation, you are connected to everyone else in the congregation who is practicing courage this week. Does this make sense? Okay. Now, does everybody, I don't have them yet, so I want to make sure I get them too. Who needs a commitment card? Who still needs one besides me? Nobody? Okay, so let's go ahead and sign these, and you're going to put it in the offering basket when the offering comes around, along with your gift. So put your name on this if you choose courage this week. And then we need affirmation cards as well. So who needs affirmations and does not yet have one? Okay, we need more affirmation cards. And we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think we need more people handing these out. Yeah. No, they go in the offering basket during the offering. Yeah, hang on to those for the offering. All right? So we're going to take the affirmations. They still need them back on the stairs. The musicians on the stairs need affirmation cards. We'll get better at this, folks. Don't panic. Affirmation card. The band in the back. I need one too. All right. Thank you, Galen. All right, so have we all got them now? Anybody still need an affirmation? Okay. All right, good. Now I'm going to invite you to stand together, and we're going to say this affirmation as one voice. So know that as you're standing there, the vibration of your voice now is being felt throughout the universe. These vibrations don't end in this room. The sound vibration continues very subtly all the way out into the universe. And we go forth as one voice, and our vibration affects everyone in this room as well. So let's say this together. I am willing to step forward and be visible. I know that what I have to say is valuable, and so it is. Please be seated and give yourselves a hand. Nice job, everyone, for putting up with the, oh, no, that will not do. That will not do. No, you may be seated. But when you're acknowledging yourself, you must do this with wholehearted enthusiasm. So, self-acknowledgement. Woo! Excellent. Okay, now we pray. All right. So, you might take your little affirmation card and hold it near your heart right now. Oh, we bless this courage. We bless the activity of spirit throughout the universe. The activity of that one, which is neither daring nor courageous, because it does all, everywhere, always, constantly, with such joy and delight. It's only we humans who forget who we are that need to call forth our courage and daring, but it's part of our discovering who we are. And so I know that the creativity, the joy, the daring, the bravery, the beauty, the courage of the divine presence in its constant creativity is our essence right here and right now. Whatever we're called to be courageous about this week, we have everything we need to do it. We have all of the courage within us, And we have the support of the entire universe to stand in integrity and speak from personal safety, personal groundedness, inner security, integrity, and truth. We can do this because we are supported by our community, encouraged this week. And so I know that wondrous courage is being manifested through us now and throughout the week. I let this prayer go with joy, with wonder and celebration, and with great gratitude. And I simply let it be right now. And together we say, and so it is. Yes, and so it is.
Sitting on a bench one day, I asked the Lord, teach me how to pray. And as I opened up my heart to Him, came to me where to begin. Oh, let me feel your love, Lord. Let me feel your love. Let me feel your love, Lord. Let me feel your love. And in those moments when I felt so close, I must own the consequence for the choice that I made. Time and time again I reached for the sky, only to remember the truth lies inside. Oh, let me feel your love, Lord. Let me feel your love. Let me feel your love, Lord. Let me feel your love. Let me feel your love, Lord. Let me feel your love. Let me feel your love, Lord. Let me feel your love. So I keep breathing one breath at a time. My spirit soars and I accept my life. Loving you comes from loving me. And in this balance lies the way to be. Let me feel your love, Lord. Let me feel your love. Let me feel your love, Lord. Let me feel your. Let me feel your love, Lord. Let
morning.
Morning.
My name's Gail Durkin. I'm a practitioner of this community. And I'd like the ushers to come forward, please. This is the offering time at the celebration service. If this is your first time here, your presence is your gift to us today. So thank you for coming. The rest of us, would you take your offering card, your pledge card, or your courageous card. Place it over your heart. And let's say this together. This gift I give is God in action. I am now sending it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is. Please collect the offering.
Word of God is praying through me. The Word of God is praying through me. It praying through my whole being. The Word of God is praying through me. And I purify my soul with the bass. Let's just hear the bass and drums. Yeah, I feel it.
So we do now together, all of us, accept this offering for Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living with great gratitude, knowing that as it goes forth from here, everywhere that it goes until it turns to dust, it is creating abundant blessings to everyone who comes in contact with it, starting right here with us. And so it is. Thank you, Gail.
Magical dust.
All right. So, thank you to everybody this morning. Gail, Bodie, Rick, Robin, Amanda for the wonderful music. Reverend Sarah, just for being. Michael Hart. My eyes landed on Reverend Sarah. for Michael Hart for being my practitioner on duty this morning, and Gailya, Magdalena, who did this beautiful altar. And I want to tell you, this says, sing your song, dance your dance, tell your tale. Sing your song with courage, dance your dance with courage, tell your tale with courage. So this beauty this morning is both for courage and also for this beautiful abundance. So I want to thank all those of you who brought things to share this morning from your garden for our Harvest Sunday. They look absolutely gorgeous. We're very grateful for that. I want to thank Jim Homa for setting up this morning and getting my microphone all going with me, and Bob Gordon for running the sound and making sure you could hear me. I want to thank Tom and Ron for the video this morning, and Ceci on the PowerPoint, and our wonderful practitioners at the table over here who are on duty this morning. They're available to pray with you following the service. I don't think I asked the practitioners to surround the room during the prayer today, but if you are a licensed practitioner, would you stand? All of these individuals here are people who spent a great deal of time and study in science of mind to learn how to be spiritual prayer counselors. And so they're available, the ones that are at the table every Sunday are available for prayer with you following the service. You may be seated. And I'm asking them to wear their stoles all the time now, all of them, just so that you recognize who they are and how many of them we have actually here who are available. So those who aren't at the table, you know, you might ask them in conversation, tell me more about what practitioners do. David? Oh, David. And I want to thank David Selzer, of course, who was our welcome man this morning. I hadn't gotten to you yet, David. And I see that we have a young man over here with a red hat on. Thank you for coming and handling it so well this morning over there. Good job. And all of you, thank you for being here with us this morning. Everybody who brought food, the whole 9 yards. Everybody, thank you so much for being here this morning. Next Sunday, we have the Power of Spiritual Mind Treatment, a workshop that is backed by popular demand with Leslie Giannetti, who is one of our licensed practitioners. That will be at the Learning Center. It's free on a love offering basis. You do need to sign up, correct? Yes. So please sign up at the education table for that workshop. Also, my installation is coming up. Now, this is, I love this term because I always feel like I ought to be an appliance installation. These are pictures from the installation they did for me in Vancouver when I was the minister there. So we have ministers and dignitaries who come, and we go through one of our ceremonies to do this. We also have a big party afterwards, so we're going to have a dessert potluck, and there's champagne and wine left from the soiree that we're going to have, and we'll just have a lovely time. But what you also need to know is that if you are a member here or a regular congregant, that you're going to be installed also. So don't miss it, because this is an installation of us as a sacred team. Me, with the Leadership Council, with the practitioners, and with all of you. So don't miss your opportunity to come and be installed with me. And once we're all plugged in together, we'll be ready to go. All right? Reverend Sarah is going to be doing her Invent a Session workshop on the 21st of October. This is a workshop where if you want to start an activity with a group, or you want to have a conversation about something or explore an idea, that she will lead you through a process to help do that right here with your spiritual community. It's going to be from 11:15 to 12:45 right here in the sanctuary. So please check that out. If you have questions, you can talk to Reverend Sarah. Also, we could use a few more volunteers to run the PowerPoint so that Ceci doesn't have to work every single day of the week, which would be good. So talk to her about it, because I put it all together. So all you have to do is run it and then take it down. And it is not difficult. Believe me. Honest. I would not lie to you. Be courageous. Be courageous. Volunteer to help. All right? Also, next Sunday is the 22nd International World Forgiveness Day. Now, this was started by our own Bob Plath, who went on to his greater adventure a few years back. But this is happening next week at this address, 645 Tamalpais Drive in Corte Madera. $25 suggested donation. There is limited space, so they do want you to pre-register. So there's the website address up there to pre-register. And finally, if you're a member here at Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, you get a gift for your birthday. So all of you who are Libras, come over to the practitioner table and fill out your certificate for a complimentary full practitioner session with one of our available practitioners for that over here at the table. And do come and have these beautiful ladies pray with you. All you have to do is come over to the table if you have a prayer request, and then just wait there until they come back from whoever they're with, and they will do the next one. They'll take you and do the next one with you, and it'll be a beautiful thing. Please don't ever carry heaviness away that you arrived with in the morning, okay? So that's it for announcements. I want to ask you to stand and join me now for the benediction and the closing song. And take hands with the community around you, the dear ones. Be aware of their hands in yours as we say this together, because part of it is what happens when somebody places a hand in yours. So let's know this together. I now walk so that whoever walks beside me dwells in the presence of God, and whoever places a hand in mine is lifted, and whoever thinks of me is illumined with God consciousness. For spirit and all people and I are one eternally, and so it is. Oh, and by the way, Ceci has Science of Mind magazines over here for sale at the PowerPoint table following the service. Okay, let's sing.